This week I could have made $4,200, but I ended up losing $800 across my two funded accounts and my new FTMO challenge. I opened a total of 8 trades, and this is how it went. Okay, so let's start on silver, which is the hottest market right now. And my first trade was based on this 1 hour fair value gap, which formed at the beginning of Tuesday's London Open. If we go into the 15-minute time frame, you can see that price touched the fair value gap and started immediately to react. And after a couple of candles, you can see that formed one of my setups. So I entered right here, placing the stop loss below the low. And honestly, after the drop we saw last week, I was aiming at infinite Rs. The problem is that silver didn't want to go higher effectively, so it ended up stopping me out after a couple of candles. But as you can see, after stopping me out, it started to immediately react. So if we get back to the 1 hour time frame, you can see the fair value gap is still valid, and he also took this swing low. So I was ready to re-enter, and I did, because after this candle, you can see a strong reaction. So I ended up entering right here, but price didn't go too far before actually stopping me out. I admit that this was kind of upsetting because I really believed that silver would have continued to go higher, but in reality, this was only the beginning, because the next day, price ended up going higher as I expected and formed again a new fair value gap at the beginning of London Open. So I was there on the 15-minute time frame waiting patiently for this fair value gap to be touched. And price did touch it and also formed immediately a setup. And I was so convinced about this setup, I was already imagining myself making some profits, starting to recover my drawdown. And this time I was aiming at 2 Rs because I didn't want to repeat the mistake from the previous day where I imagined whoever knows how many are in profits. And it's not that I was wrong with this trade, because as you can see, it ended up making 2 Rs, okay? The problem is that I closed a break-even this trade right here. So I didn't make this $2,000 because I trailed my stop loss to break even way too soon. I should have waited, but honestly guys, it would have been really hard, because even if I waited that for this swing to be taken, price would have retraced right here, and maybe I would have been stopped out with spread. Maybe I should have done better. Well, definitely I should have done better, but this is the reality. But it's not over, because until now, all the trades that I showed you on silver were on my intraday account. So I lost one and I got 2 break-evens. But then I opened my first trade on my new FTMO challenge, which is this. And honestly, guys, I'm not too proud of it, because what kind of setup is this, okay? But at the end of the video, you will see the trades that I open on gold, and then you will figure out why I decided to open this trade. But basically, the idea was that I could have been wrong about my break-even decision. So I decided to re-enter on my challenge, which was a different account, to diversify the risk. The problem is that I didn't aim at 1 hour, but as usual, 2, and the trade stopped me out. So I lost $1,000 on my FTMO challenge. But that's it for silver. And speaking of FTMO challenge, this is another trade that I opened, but this time on GBPUSD. And I wanted to try something different from my usual strategy. So what I ended up doing is waiting for price to touch this EMA 10 closing period, and then I went into the 15-minute time frame and I waited the beginning of the London Open, because I don't want to open trading forex before the beginning of London Open if they are intraday trades. And I waited for a close below the previous candle's low like this, and there I opened my trade. Well, it ended up being a really good trade, as you can see, but there is a problem. And the problem is that when I opened this trade, I was aiming at this swing low, which would have been 4.5 R. Once price reached 2 R, I was really tempted to close the trade just to make 2K on my FTMO challenge and be content with that. The problem is that I was really convinced the price would have reached this level, so I didn't take any partial. I let the trade run, and well, as you can see, it would have stopped me out, but I closed the trade at break even right here. So again, $2,000 that I could have made, but I didn't because I mismanaged the trade. What I learned from this trade is that even if you are convinced a target will be reached, sometimes it's still good to take partials and be content with a little less, rather than ended up in these situations where you do nothing and you just wasted your time and your energies. Moving on to the next trade on euro dollar, as you can see, price on the daily time frame reached up into this fair value gap, and on the 4-hour made this engulfing candle. So I decided to enter short right here, stop loss above the high, and my idea was to take 2 hours right about here, but unfortunately price action didn't give me what I expected, because as you can see, price went right here, like it was almost at this swing low, and then started to reverse with the interest rates for the ECB, and I decided to close my trade at break even right here. Why? Because Dixie took the relative swing high at this level, and also the GBPUSD pair crashed down while Euro was consolidating. So I thought that this could have been a divergence, and that this was just the beginning of a reversal, with this being a long setup. But I was kinda wrong, because in the end, as you can see, price did in fact go lower, and I wouldn't have been able to make 2 hours, but I already decided to take a partial right here, and then I would have been stopped out at break even probably. So I think I was kind of unlucky in this particular occasion, but I don't look at this trade and think of it as a mistake, because I had my reason to close the trade. I just been unlucky. But now I want to talk about gold, because do you remember the trade that I told you about on silver at the beginning of this video, which was linked to this trade? Well, here we are. As you can see, on the 4-hour time frame, you have this fair value gap. So I was waiting for price to get back into this gap. And as you can see, on the 15-minute time frame, price gave this beautiful reaction once it touched it. So I decided to enter like this. Again, I was aiming at least 2 hours. The idea was to trail the stop loss to break even once these swing highs were taken, but unfortunately price didn't want to go higher and started to retrace really hard. So in the meantime that this trade formed, the second silver trade that I opened, which had the large body, the large candle, was happening at the same time this trade formed, so I opened both of them and I got stopped out on both. This exact trade was the second lost trade on the intraday account, but it's not over, because as you can see, at 10 a.m. the 4-hour candle closed. It closed below the low of the previous candle. So I decided to enter short right here. Also because we were inside of this daily fair value gap and I expected some weakness. For this trade, I was aiming at this swing low at 5R, and what happened was that the trade went in the right direction for one time, and I took a partial this time because I didn't want to repeat my mistakes over and over again, right about here, okay, at the opening of Friday's daily candle. I took 1.2k and then I trailed my stop loss to break even, because the trade arrived at 3R. And in my experience, if a trade reached 3R and then goes back to break even, it's not a good sign, and I don't want to be in the trade anymore. So going to the next day, I waited, and boom, here we are. The market is closed, and in theory, my trade is still open. In reality, I closed it right before the market closed, because I don't want to hold a short on gold during this time with price being basically a break even. There's simply no way. Looking at this trade, honestly, I mean, I tried. I don't think it was a mistake, again, like for the trade on Euro, because I still made 1.2k in profits and I tried to do more. So yeah, I left 1.8k on the table, but I tried to do more. As I said, I wanted to do 5 or 6 hours. So I'm okay with that. But to wrap it up, summing up all the mistakes, I passed from potentially being able to make $4,200 to losing $800 on the same week, opening 8 trades. Honestly, I didn't think that this could have been possible, not for the results itself, but because 8 trades for me are really a big number of trades. And I know for a fact that if I didn't have the new challenge, I wouldn't have opened all these trades. And a rule that I'm following for this FTMO challenge is that I want to open trades that I'm not too confident to open on my funded accounts, but still I think they are kind of good and they could deliver good results. And as you can see, they would have delivered this week, but I wasn't able to manage the trade properly. So guys, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.